are so many stereotypes and expectations. One is that if you are a female, you are to be physically present in order to demonstrate that you care pretty much about anything. And your
Wow.
physical presence is part of the litmus test for you being a good, almost anything is you showing up and being physically present.
Your book is called Dropping the Ball. And when I think of this phrase, dropping the ball, right, we all think of it as a negative, right? Like you missed out, something didn't happen, you made a mistake, right? You're juggling and you dropped one, right? But you use it in your book as a positive thing women can do. So can you break down the definition, and can you talk about the shift from something, seeing that as negative to potentially something that's positive?
Sure. Well, I wrote a book called Drop the Ball because I used to be someone who was terrified of ever dropping a ball. I used to feel that it meant that I was failing, that I wasn't taking timely action on something, that I was disappointing myself, my family, my community. As dramatic as it might sound, I was disappointing the entire Black race, as in, if I mess this up, they're never going to hire another Black person again.
Oh, wow.
And so I was able to keep a lot of balls juggling in the air for a long time in my life. In one way, because I'm a A-type personality, my parents
Yeah.
instilled in me an incredible work ethic. But what happened to me is what happens to a lot of people in life. I had a life-changing event in which all of the balls came crashing down, to the floor. And when that happened, one of the observations that I made was that Armageddon never hit, meaning all of the things that I was always terrified would happen if I ever dropped a ball didn't actually happen in reality. My life changing event was the birth of my first child, but it could be anything. It could be you finally got the promotion and realized it's a lot harder to be the boss than you thought it was going to be. It could be a diagnosis. It could be a viral pandemic, an economic recession. I mean, a lot of things can happen to cause you to start dropping balls left and right. And nobody called to tell me that they didn't love me anymore or that they weren't going to be my friend anymore because I didn't show up to something. My boss didn't fire me. I was always paranoid my boss would fire me if I ever dropped a ball. No one ever came to read me my Miranda rights, which I always thought would happen because part of my drop the ball fiasco was as a, new working mom who was being paid outside of the home in the workforce, I would be rushing home at the end of the day to relieve our childcare provider, which meant I wasn't moving the car back and forth across the street for alternate side parking, which, if you don't live in New York, is just this annoying thing where you have to move your car back and forth for street cleaning. And if you don't, you get this bright orange citation. I don't know how many of those things you get before they come and arrest you, but I am living proof that it is a lot of them. No one ever comes. So I started to really question, why is it that I feel all of this pressure, and kind of took myself on a journey. And that's how I came to appropriate the term drop the ball. So for me now, dropping the ball is really dropping these unrealistic expectations that you're supposed to have them all beautifully juggling in the air to begin with. And that really you do three things that I think are critical. One is getting clear about what matters most to you, separate and apart from what matters most to everybody else. Number two, getting clear about your highest and best use in achieving what matters most, instead of just saying yes to everything that comes over the fence. And then finally, meaningfully engaging other people in your journey, pretty much getting the help that you need so that you can be successful and so that the people around you can be successful as well.
So if I'm a listener, I hear you say, like, getting clear on these things. How do you get clear on them? Like, how do you determine what actually matters to you? How do you determine how to prioritize if everything seems to be like, a fire that needs putting out?
Yes, it's a journey. So the fastest, kind of quickest way for me to respond to that is getting clear about what matters most to you. Really starts with recognizing that you're not the source of your own expectations of yourself. which
Ooh.
is kind of a daunting realization if you're someone who's ambitious or you
Yeah.
think you're in the driver's seat,
Yeah.
of your own
Yeah.
life. You're actually not. And if you don't believe me, do an exercise in which you write down all of the roles that you fulfill in your life, because all of us are born into the world playing certain roles. If you were assigned girl, your first role was probably daughter. If you were assigned boy, your first role was probably son. If you have siblings, you became a
Yeah.
brother, sister. You went to the playground, you became a friend, a student, a worker, just husband, wife, whatever it is. And I
Right.
want you to write out all of your roles. Go ahead and put the word good in front of all of them because you at least aspire to that. And then pretend
Yeah.
that each one of those roles is a job and that you're drafting a job description for the role.
Whew.
I want you to answer two questions. The first question is, what does a good ex do? What does a good mom do? What does a good
Hmm.
manager do? The second question is, how do I know that that's what a good ex does? And if you answer those questions honestly, what you'll conclude is that the answer to that second question is never, well, I made it up. If you have enough conversations
Yeah.
with people, which you, I'm sure, do as a podcaster, one of the observations that you make that I find so fascinating is that even though we're born in different parts of the world, to different families, different cultures, somehow we all ended up with very similar job descriptions for what it means to
Yeah.
be a good
Yep.
anything. And part of getting clear about what matters most to you is you rewriting your job description. So, first, recognizing that you're living somebody else's job description, and then really getting clear about what you really want to be in yours. If you have no idea what matters most to you after doing this exercise and you want to start from scratch, Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People has one of my favorite exercises, which is this funeral visualization where you imagine the end of your life and what you would want a family member, a coworker, a friend to say about you at the end of your journey. And it's so powerful
Yeah.
because I used to be someone who was really into my own productivity. But when I did this exercise, I realized at the end of my life, I don't want people standing up saying, well, Tiffany, she got a lot of things done on her to do list.
She was very
No, that's
productive.
not what
Yeah.
people say. I want people to talk about the impact that I created, in the
Yeah.
world. So that's where I encourage people to start if they just have no idea what matters most. I think another way to get at it is for you to just ask yourself, what matters most to me? Usually, when I ask people that question, they start rattling off different parts of their life. My career matters, my kids matter. The deeper question I want you to try to get at is, what do you hope to achieve in relationship to that area of your life?
Hmm. Yeah.
My career is important to me, but what matters most is that I'm advancing women and girls. That's pretty much why I'm on the planet. My marriage is important to me, but what matters most is that I'm nurturing a healthy partnership because I know what it's like to be in a marriage that's not a healthy partnership. My kids
Yeah.
are important to me, but what matters most is that I'm raising conscious global citizens. I don't care if they get into Harvard or Yale. I care that they're people who have empathy and that are equipped to create their own impact in the world. So once you're clear about, what matters most, getting at your highest and best use is really an analysis of what are the things that you do very well with very little effort, not because you were a child prodigy, usually because you've just done them over and over, combined with what are the things that only you can do that would be callous or highly irresponsible to delegate to someone else.
Hmm.
So, if we take my example of raising conscious global citizens, that's something that really matters to me. One of the things that I do really well with very little effort is helping other people to achieve clarity through guidance and encouragement. Some people say I should have been a coach, I should have had a coaching practice. One of the things that only I can do in relationship to my kids is instill values in them. You can get somebody to drop them off at school, make lunch, but I kind of think if you're a parent, it would be callous or highly irresponsible to delegate the installation of values. So, my
Yeah.
highest and best use in raising conscious global citizens is engaging my kids in a meaningful conversation each and every day. I'm basically their coach in chief. What kind of day did you create today? Who did you laugh with today? If an alien spaceship came down from outer space and abducted someone from your Fortnite game, who would they have abducted? Why would they have abducted that person? And in that way, hopefully, I can help them to develop a positive relationship with themselves, with their peers, with the world around them. And that conversation every single day is at the top of my job description for what it means to be a good mom. See, once you start curating your new job description, which is about getting clear about what matters most to you, figuring out what you need to be doing, then when you face society's expectations about, oh, in order to be a good mom, I need to bake the cookies, I can say, bake cookies, whatever. I just had my meaningful conversation. I can see that my kids are growing and learning,
Right.
and I'm all good. I don't have to,
Right.
I can drop
Or,
the
oh, I
ball.
didn't drop them off, but that's not part of the
That's not it.
definition for what I believe a
That's
good
it.
mom is, or the mom I want to
That's
be
it.
is.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if you can
Hmm.
do that and then finally just ask for help, which seems so simple and yet is so hard, we could have a whole other podcast episode just on how to effectively ask for help and get it. If you can be
Yeah.
vulnerable enough to do it and to do it relentlessly, as in, if anyone even asks you, how can I support you? How can I help you? You should always have an answer to that question. Then those are some of the steps that I encourage people to take to drop the ball.
Tiffany, that was incredible. I need everybody listening to rewind about 7 minutes and listen to all of that again. Wow.